The first time I descended into the depths beneath the Vatican, the air was thick with the scent of forgotten centuries mold on ancient parchment, incense burnt long ago, and the subtle, undeniable trace of decay. It was supposed to be just another evening of research, but the archives hid more than just old texts and relics. They concealed secrets dark enough to shake the foundations of my faith. A mistake, the slip of a hand, made me pull on the wrong manuscript. The shelf before me shuddered, a soft groan of stone against stone echoing through the musty air as a passage revealed itself. A dark mouth leading into the unknown. Heart pounding, curiosity overcame caution. I lit a small lantern and stepped into the shadows. The walls were damp, and the air was cooler than above. Each step felt like a descent through time itself. "What are you doing, Matteo?" I muttered under my breath, my voice barely a whisper in the oppressive silence. But the allure of the unknown pulled me deeper. As I reached the end of the dimly lit passage, a massive ancient door stood before me, its wood heavy with intricate carvings of angels. The angels' eyes seemed to follow me, their expressions twisted in silent screams. I pushed the door open with a deep breath, and the room beyond was bathed in an eerie moonlight. A black marble sarcophagus stood solemnly at
To protect, to serve, to join the eternal vigil.
he continued, his voice slow and ominous.
That is why you are here.
I struggled to make sense of his words. Protect what? I asked, my own voice sounding shaky and unsure.
The secrets that must not see the light, the truths that would tear apart this world.
Images flooded my mind as he spoke. Wars fought in shadows, creatures clawing at ancient gates, and vampire cardinals steady, silent watch. I felt a pull, a desire to flee, to forget, but his gaze held me fixed. I am a church servant, I stammered, struggling with the weight of my vows and the unearthly offer.
And serve you shall.
His voice soft as silk, deadly as a dagger. I knew then that my life would never be the same again. I was born in a small Italian village nestled between rugged mountains and rolling vineyards. My childhood was steeped in the rituals of the church bells ringing through the misty mornings and prayers whispered at dusk. My mother, a devout woman, instilled in me a fierce faith and tales of saints and miracles. Yet, it was an incident during my early teens that forever altered my path. While exploring an ancient chapel, I witnessed an exorcism. The sight of the possessed, writhing and speaking in tongues, terrified yet fascinated me. It was this event that planted a seed of curiosity about the church's darker battles. As the nights passed, I lost myself in a whirlwind of horror and wonder. I was learning the ways of the night from Ambrosio, my mentor, and we were roaming through the darkness, confronting the creatures that whispered of chaos and destruction. Meanwhile, the city above us lay asleep, oblivious to the battles being fought in its depths. On one particular night, as we stood facing a demon beneath the Tiber's ancient bridges, Ambrosio turned to me and said,
"Feel the power, Matteo. This is our burden, our blessing."
I could sense the creature's anger as it let out a snore, but it was cut short when I thrust a sacred relic through its heart. The demon's body dissolved into ash as I felt a surge of power, and the rush of the fight was intoxicating. However, as each dawn approached, I found myself returning to my quarters, haunted by the weight of my actions and the screams of the vanquished echoing in my mind. The question that kept me up at night was, what am I becoming? These thoughts whispered through the cold pre-dawn air as I grappled with the consequences of my newfound powers. Under the guidance of Cardinal Ambrosio, we often engaged in debates about the nature of good and evil. One evening, in the serene atmosphere of the Vatican's oldest library, Ambrosio asked me if it was possible to truly comprehend light without experiencing darkness. Our discussions explored the idea of evil being necessary for the existence of free will, and with the Cardinal's wisdom, I began to view my frightening encounters as part of a grander divine plan. One night, Ambrosio told me,
It's hard to believe I was once on the other side, consumed by darkness.
I can't even imagine. How did you find your way back?
It took years of self-reflection and confronting my past. The scars you see are a constant reminder of the battles I fought, both physical and emotional.
I've always admired your strength, Ambrosio, but lately, I've been haunted by the fear of losing myself in this endless fight.
I understand that fear, my friend. It's a constant battle to maintain our humanity amidst all the darkness. But remember, we are not alone in this. We have each other.
That's true. Our bond has grown so strong, from mentor and pupil to comrades in arms. We both carry the scars of our secret war.
Indeed, these scars are a testament to our resilience. They remind us of the sacrifices we've made and the battles we've won. But we must never let them define us.
You're right, Ambrosio. We must stay true to who we are, even in the face of despair. We will fight side by side, not just for others, but for ourselves as well.
Together, we will navigate the darkest paths and emerge stronger. Our scars will be a symbol of our triumph over evil, rather than a mark of defeat.
Thank you, Ambrosio. Your words give me hope. Let us continue this fight, knowing that we are not alone, but comrades in arms, united in purpose. The next night, under a blood-red moon, Ambrosio led me through the catacombs beneath the city.
Tonight, you face your greatest test.
He said, his voice a somber echo in the sprawling underground labyrinth. We stopped in a cavernous space, the walls etched with ancient runes that glowed faintly in the darkness. Ambrosio gestured to a pentagram etched into the floor, surrounded by candles that flickered despite the absence of any breeze.
Prepare yourself.
From the shadows, a low growl resonated, and a creature emerged. It was like nothing I had ever seen, a grotesque mix of man and beast, with gnarled horns and eyes that burned like coals. The demon snarled, chains dragging behind it as it circled the pentagram, bound yet ferocious. Ambrosio nodded at me, and I stepped forward, clutching a crucifix and a vial of holy water. As the demon lunged at the invisible barrier of the pentagram, its claws scraping against the containment, I felt a rush of fear and adrenaline. I began, in the name of the Father, splashing the holy water in a bowl dark. The liquid sizzled on contact, emitting steam and a shriek from the beast. The fight was brutal and swift. The demon, fueled by rage and ancient malice, thrashed against its bonds, spewing vile threats and curses. I chanted the exorcism rites, each word a struggle against the cacophony of the demon's wrath. With each verse, the air grew heavier, the shadows deeper, and the creature's resistance waned. Finally, with a deafening roar that shook the foundations of the catacombs, the demon's form began to disintegrate, collapsing into itself like a starved shadow until all that was left was a wisp of sulfuric smoke. Panting, I fell to my knees, overwhelmed by the ordeal yet empowered by the victory. Ambrosio helped me to my feet, his eyes revealing a flicker of pride.
Well done, Matteo. Tonight, you have truly become a warrior of the Church.
As I grew more proficient in banishing demons, I wrestled with the violence I wielded. Each exorcism, each confrontation with the creatures of the night, left a mark on my soul. I began to suffer from vivid nightmares where I relived the battles, each time questioning my actions and their justification. The dichotomy of my role as protector and destroyer tormented me, blurring the lines between salvation and damnation. During a particularly harrowing encounter, I faced a demon who pleaded for mercy, speaking of a time when it was human before it fell into darkness. This encounter shook my rigid views, forcing me to consider the lost souls by prayers. I prayed, in nomine Patris. The world slowed down, and all I could hear was the sound of my heartbeat. It was a drum of war in the silence of the approaching dawn. The creature attacked me with all its might, but I stood my ground. My relic pierced the beast's heart, turning it into a column of ash that scattered in the morning breeze. Ambrosio, bloodied but unbowed, put his hand on my shoulder.
Well done, my son. Today, you have become the guardian you were meant to be.
His words filled me with pride and the sense of accomplishment. We had saved Rome from the darkness that threatened to consume it. As the sun rose higher and cast a golden light over the blood-stained steps of the basilica, we retreated into the shadows one last time. Ambrosio led me back to the underground chamber where my journey had begun.
Your training is complete.
He said, his voice echoing off the stone walls.
But remember, with eternal life comes eternal vigilance. You must continue to guard the secrets and safety of the church.
As he spoke, a part of me longed for the simple faith I had once held. Now I knew too much, seen too much. Could I ever go back to the man I was before? The chamber felt like a tomb, and the air was stale with the weight of centuries. I understand, I replied, though doubt clouded my heart. Ambrosio nodded, and a grim smile touched his lips.
You will do well, Matteo. Remember, we are the unseen, the unknown protectors. Now, go, serve in the light, guard in the shadow.
My days were spent in the hushed corridors and sunlit squares of the Vatican, my nights in the hidden corners of Rome where shadows reigned. I walked between worlds, a keeper of peace and a warrior of the dark. One evening, as I walked through St. Peter's Square, I felt the eyes of the saints and martyrs upon me. They knew the dual life I led. A young novice approached me, her eyes filled with the light of unwavering faith. "Father, your sermon today inspired me greatly," she said. I smiled, touched by her innocence. "Thank you, my child. We all strive to serve His will." As she walked away, a chill ran down my spine. While I saw her walk away and I was facing her back, her head turned unnaturally 180 degrees. Her face was morphed into something otherworldly. Her eyes had turned white, and with an unholy sound, my mother's voice came out of her mouth.
"You forgot me, Matteo. You left me alone to die."
My relic at hand, I tried to remove the evil spirit from this girl without causing her any harm. As I stepped forward, she sprinted unnaturally to a window of a nearby house's second floor and vanished. Years turned to decades. Generations passed, but I remained unchanged by time, forever marked by the night of my awakening. The secrets of the Vatican, both ancient and terrifying, were mine to keep, the covenant unbroken. Yet, every so often, when the moon was just right, I would return to the sarcophagus where my journey began, to remind myself of the cost of our vigilance, the lives saved, and the souls lost. Standing before the marble tomb one night, I whispered into the silence, "Forgive me, for I have sinned and saved in equal measure." The echo of my own words was my only absolution. The world believes the Vatican to be merely a place of faith and history, a repository of art and culture. Few will ever know of the darkness lurking in its shadows and the eternal vigilance required to keep it at bay. I am Matteo, priest, protector, a man of light and shadow. This is my confession, my burden, my legacy. As I write these final words, the sun sets over Rome, casting long shadows across the holy city. The night calls to me once more, and I must answer. It is my curse and calling, a destiny written in the darkest ink beneath the eternal city.
If you enjoyed this journey through the shadows and secrets of the Vatican alongside Matteo, please consider subscribing to our channel for more tales of suspense and the supernatural. Each story we share is crafted to stir the soul, challenge the mind, and keep you on the edge of your seat. Don't miss out on our upcoming adventures. Subscribe today and join a community of those who dare to explore the darker corners of history and the human heart.